Stephen Promnitz, Lake Resources, welcome. It's good to see you again. I'd like to start off by asking my guest just to tell us what your stock symbol is and what exchange you're on so that they can find you. And then let's get into the exciting work that you and your remarkable company are undertaking right now.
Thanks very much. So Lake Resources is under the ticker code LKE on the ASX, the Australian Securities Exchange, and it's under ticker code LLKKF on the OTC. We're on the OTCQB. And if you're in Europe, we're on the Frankfurt Exchange under LK1.
I'm going to jump in here because the last time that we met, which, as you pointed out, seemed like it was 1998, but it was really March of this year at PDAC in Toronto, you were about to go into pilot project testing. Then COVID hit. Take us forward from there. What happened? How did you adjust to that? And where are we at now?
Well, we've been fortunate that we've had no major cases, no real issues on a personal level with COVID. But like everyone else, it has impacted the run of progress. We've probably lost in total about 3 months, which is perhaps better than some, not as good as others. At the Argentina level, where our projects are, they were very quick in putting a quarantine in place, and we were able to put methods in place, reduce our staffing. However, we pulled everybody out of the field in late June as we saw cases starting to increase. Our pilot plant has been operating in California. As you know, California has also had a number of cases, but they've been able, after a few delays, to get back operating. And the company's actually headquartered in Australia. We've been fortunate there. So really what's happened since then is that our pilot plant has been operating successfully, albeit with some delays. The pilot plant produces a liquid, which is lithium chloride. We're now getting that processed into lithium carbonate, which is a saleable item. We'll have that out in the next few weeks. So despite COVID, we're back on track, and I guess we were fortunate that we weren't in the construction phase. So things at the end of the day have actually gone quite well, and we're back on track, albeit a few months later than had planned.
Who are you working with for that transition when you go from lithium chloride to carbonate? Which company are you working with?
Okay, so a quick background to that. So Lake Resources is trying to do something fundamentally different in the supply chain for batteries. So we're producing lithium. There are many other companies who either are producing or would like to be producing lithium, but we're doing something fundamentally different by using a direct extraction process. So the salt lakes in Argentina and in Chile, they look like Death Valley in California. Underneath, the salty water also contains lithium. The traditional process is you pump that out, you put it in a pond, you let the sun evaporate out, concentrate the salts. What we do is we put it in a tank, and inside those tanks are these beads. They directly attach onto the lithium in a space of 2 or 3 hours. The rest of the water is allowed to go back to the source, and you produce a high purity product. Our technology partner who provides that is an unlisted company called Lilac Solutions. They're based in California, and they've been doing a great job with our pilot plant module on Kachi brines from our flagship project in Argentina. And then that was demonstrated, I think it was in July, that the quality of the liquid, the lithium chloride, is just as good as what we saw previously at lab scale. But the next step, which is to convert that into a powder, that's a saleable product called lithium carbonate, we're getting that done by a third party called Hazen. Hazen Research is based in Golden, Colorado. They're very well known both in hard rock and in hydrometallurgy, and they are producing a final product for it, and we should have the first samples of that out in the next few weeks.
So do you have word yet on what the quality of that is? Because as I understand, you have a very high quality product that you're producing, which gives you a market advantage because not all lithium is battery grade. Do I have that right?
That's absolutely right.
Yes.
So the benefit of the process is simply this. You just take the lithium out of the water. So just by that very fact, you produce a high quality product. You only get a few other salts and impurities with it. So directly you produce a high quality product, but that's a liquid. So we're converting that now into a powder, a saleable lithium carbonate. But because we can see with that liquid that it's just as good, if not better, than what we saw at lab scale, we therefore know that the quality of our product as lithium carbonate will also be very high purity and battery quality. And as you mentioned, there's only about 50 or 60% of a product out of lithium brines is battery quality, and only about 35% of all lithium that's produced is actually qualified as battery quality by the tier one battery makers. So it's a rarefied space, and we've targeted that because if you can produce that consistently, we believe we can with this technology, then you can get a consistent premium price, and you can work with tier one, tier two makers in the battery supply chain.
Because that really is the premium market. So you do this conversion in Colorado, and it's my understanding you then send it to Nova Scotia, to Novanix, to get them to confirm that what you're saying about your product is accurate, and that you're able to then demonstrate that to potential buyers.
Yeah, so we're about to start that process that all developers, new producers go into, which is you send your samples to participants in the supply chain. They could be cathode makers, they could be battery makers, pack makers, and then they will test that product and work out if that's something that suits their specific specifications. That process can take a while, and it can be fairly opaque. And so what we decided to do was try to find somebody that we could work with to demonstrate that this product was truly battery quality. We were fortunate to be able to work with Novanix. Novanix is a spin out of Dalhousie University. A very fine and well-known gentleman by the name of Dr. Jeff Dahn has been working on the cutting edge of battery technology and battery testing there for some time. Novanix was spun out from that. They're probably one of the best in being able to test and demonstrate that this works well. We'll put it into a fairly traditional cathode, 622, and then put that into a battery and have that demonstrated. Now that process takes 4 months minimum, 6 months or so, but by doing that together with sending the samples to off-takers, we demonstrate that it's truly battery quality. And the kicker is, if we can actually deliver all of those things, and we're fairly confident we can, then when we actually start producing, we're already producing a qualified battery quality product. And so you get a premium price, and you get it from day one because you're doing it consistently, as opposed to doing that in the first year after you start production. So it's pretty exciting stuff. Novanix as well, I mean, they only deal with the tier one end. It's CATL, Panasonic, Apple, Tesla. And so we're pleased to be part of that whole process as well.
Okay, so this is still at the testing improving stage. Then you go, okay, now we want to start up. And one of the things that we know when you go from testing to startup, the costs are extraordinary for a startup under sort of conventional expansion out. What is the ratio between cost at pilot stage to being able to build out where you're going to have this facility, the ion technology facility in Argentina at source?
Right, so we're currently operating a pilot plant module in California.
Yep.
And our intention is to run a pilot plant on site in Argentina. If not for COVID, we'd probably have that up and running in the next couple of months. Now, given where things are, that's probably the start of next calendar year. But the good thing is we can keep the data coming out of our pilot plant module in California to help with the full-blown feasibility study. But naturally, a financier, and also for final information, we want to have that information on site. So that takes us through to first quarter, second quarter of next calendar year, 2021. By this time next year, somewhere between June and August, we should then have a definitive feasibility study, all of the data out of the pilot plant, this new process de-risked. And the beauty of this process is that it's modular. So the scale up to a module is around 3 or 4 times. Naturally, there's more of them. You'll have 50 or 60 modules operating, but the scale up risk is really limited. So essentially, we've de-risked both the technology, and we've demonstrated that technology works with the particular brines, the particular chemistry that we have at our flagship Kachi project in Argentina. Now, normally then you come into, as you described it, the tricky part, which is actually getting the whole thing, project finance, getting into production. We've actually been, we've welcomed the interest from export credit agencies, particularly EU, UK, USA, to finance a lion's share of this project into production. Now, these discussions are only preliminary at this stage, but I have to say that they're quite excited because this is a more sustainable, more responsibly sourced product. It's going into new energy space. And because it's still an export which is US dollar denominated, that ameliorates any perceived country risk issues in operating in Argentina. So for probably the first time in my professional career, the actual financing of getting into production for a smaller company actually has a fairly clear pathway. And what we're just trying to do is get from today until about this time next year, have a clear runway of financing. We've been in those discussions now for a few months, and then we can actually deliver what I think is a pretty exciting project. Because in the EU, there's recently been a report how they want to see more responsibly sourced sustainable products going into the battery supply chain there. We've seen Tesla come out with their impact statements, and they want to see more sustainably sourced products. The major car makers, VW, Daimler, BMW, Mercedes, they want to see more sustainable products. And we're going to be one of the only near midterm producers of something which also has a battery quality as well. So having battery quality with an ESG benefit, I think that's a pretty compelling case and an almost unique proposition in the market.
So what's your strategy or your plan here? Are you planning on building this out yourself, or do you see merging or vending into a major?
Our intention from day one is to be a producer. And that's why we took the route of looking at direct lithium extraction technologies about 2 years back. I have to say at that time, people thought almost that we were mad. We looked at a number that were available. We've looked at a few since, and we liked Lilac because their bead was very good at pulling out lithium and would also last a long time. Since then, that technology has been recognized, and now they have the backing of names in the industry such as the Bill Gates Breakthrough Energy Fund, MIT's the Engine Fund. So that's great. That's a great third-party advocacy. But our intention has been to be a developer. Now, of course, as we know with smaller companies, that may or may not happen, but that's certainly our intention. It could be that a member of the supply chain who is strategic would like to participate directly in the project, or it could be the financiers want to participate in the project. At the end of the day, we need to have at least a strategic alliance into the supply chain. So that may or may not involve an equity interest at the project level. That's normally what occurs. Sometimes there are commodity traders who are very closely linked with suppliers in the chain, and they may also participate down at the asset level. So we'll see how it plays out, but certainly our intention has been from day one and continues to be that we'll be developing this project. And once we get one of them going, we'll be doing another, because the beauty of direct lithium extraction is that it's modular and eminently scalable. If we look at the demand curve at the moment, whether that's Benchmark Mineral Intelligence, whether that's the EU Commission, whether that's Canaccord, all of them have a pretty steep growth in the order of 5 to 10 times increase of lithium production by 2030, and significantly more after that. So if we can produce consistently a battery quality product that's got an ESG benefit and we can scale up quickly, that's going to be almost unique. And I think that will draw a lot of attention.
Well, I think it's also important to point out that you said, it needs to be sustainable and portable, but also this technology, the ion technology, is so much faster than what has been the traditional method of evaporating and then separating out all of the impurities that were in the process. Like, how much does this accelerate from extraction to being now able to deliver it into the supply chain?
It's our view, based on and supported by the excellent work by Hatch, who assisted us in the pre-feasibility study, is that this can come to market about a year earlier because you're not building large earthenware ponds and then waiting 9 to 18, 24 months for that water to evaporate and concentrate the salts. Because those modules can be built on site, you're coming to market about a year earlier. Second, you're going to be producing a consistent product from day one. There's always some startup issues, but if there's anything at all, you're going to be able to see it in the first few weeks, tweak that slightly just so that everything's working fine. So you're going to be producing a battery quality product from day one, and you're not going to have to wait a year sending off samples, making certain that it's good quality, and you avoid the vagaries of the weather. Even though these are in arid environments, sometimes it does rain, sometimes it's cloudy, sometimes material may be blown in. So you minimize some of the production risk issues. And then in comparison to hard rock, you're not using high temperature pyrometallurgy of 1,000 degrees to convert your rock into a final product. This is all done at ambient temperature and producing a lithium carbonate product. And our intention is also to work with hybrid energy providers, solar and wind, to then reduce our CO2 footprint. It has a much better community outcome because you're not extracting the only water that's in a hyper-arid environment. And so there's a lot of positives here, not just being efficient, not just on the timeline, but some ESG benefits. And we've certainly seen that interest increase in the last 6 to 12 months.
So, above your head there on the poster that's behind you, which says Argentina's best address. Let's just talk a little bit about that, because when I was researching the scale of your claim, it's extraordinary. You talk about Kachi, but you've got 4 other projects. But just touch on that and tell us what the total square kilometer space is, because it's quite significant.
Okay, so depending on what you use, a little over 200,000 hectares, that's 200 square kilometers. That is, that's about 330,000 acres. And our Kachi claim itself is 70,000 hectares. That's, to put it in scale, that's 11 times the size of Manhattan Island. So the beauty of that, and because it's essentially a body of water underneath the surface, you can scale up to suit. Now, of course, there are some differences as you move laterally, but this particular basin we're in at Kachi is somewhat unusual, geologically speaking, because under about 100 meters, from 100 to 400 meters, it's predominantly sand. So you've got this saturated sand, very porous, very permeable, with lithium, and so you can pump at a reasonable rate. It's one thing to have lithium in your brine, but you've also got to be able to pump it out at a reasonable rate. And the fact that we can do that and then return just about all of it back to its source is a good outcome.
Well, and the resource is massive, isn't it?
Well, look, it's large now. It's certainly above among the top 10, or at least it was when we defined it in 2018.
Yeah.
But what we do know is that it extends laterally, extends at depth. So we could certainly make it one of the largest. The thing is, the current resource we have, which is quite significant, 25 years of production, doesn't even use 20% of the resource. And it's because the recoveries here are nearly twice as high. They're certainly 1.5 times higher than what you get out of a traditional brine extraction process. So therefore, you're getting much greater resource utilization. And when we say the best address, look, there are projects in the continental US, for example. There are projects in Chile, but if you're in northern Chile, if you're in northern Argentina, that is the prime address. If we're in North America, it's like, being in the Hamptons. that's where the big projects are, the big houses are, and the great thing is they're all pretty good quality, and we've now ponied up a good resource with a great way of extracting it, and now we're going to demonstrate that it's also consistently high quality. Pretty exciting.
Very exciting. And what I like, Stephen, is that this is one of many updates that we're going to be bringing visitors to the INN site on what's happening with lake resources. And so we're going to be coming back to you next month with more interesting and exciting news, I'm sure. Thank you very much for your time today.
Look, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity. Cheers for now.
Okay, see you soon.